Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for joining in. On the show this week, we sit down with Carlos Novais. Now, Carlos is a PM, a front of house engineer, photographer, videographer, and he tells us all about that. He wears many hats on tour. He tells us about his current tour, which is the Candlebox Farewell Tour, and how he got hooked up with them, plus all the other things he does. Carlos is a great guy, and you'll hear that in his voice and his energy. It was a lot of fun getting to know him. Let's check it out. All right, man. Well, tell everyone who you are.
Well, my name is Carlos Novais. I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil, born and raised. Moved to the United States in 1999. And I am a sound engineer, photographer, videographer, tour manager, and production manager.
All right on, man. So did you, before you moved to the U.S., did you do any audio engineering in Sao Paulo?
Yeah, when I was about 18, 19, I started working as an intern in a studio. And that's how I got started with audio. But before that, my bands recorded some demos, and that's what got me interested into audio engineering.
Right on. What kind of bands were you in at the time?
Mostly rock. I was really into rock. When I started playing guitar, I was 14, 15. It was 84, 85. One of my favorite albums came out at that time. Van Halen, 1984. Iron Maiden, Power Slave, AC/DC, Back in Black. All that was going on at the time. Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. So I was really into rock, and I wanted to play guitar. And that's how I got started into music. That was the beginning of it all.
All right. So when you moved to, where did you move to in the U.S. from Brazil?
I went straight to California, to be more precise, Glendale, California, because I had a friend that was living there. We did a few gigs together. He's a very talented guitar player, Sandro Albert. He's in New York now. He plays jazz. And he told me that he wanted to move to America and try pursue his career in America. And he was already in Glendale. And he told me that if I ever wanted to, he could give me he could help me out. And that's what I did. I decided to move. And it was just me and a friend of mine, actually. We decided she's a singer that I played with in a band. We both came to Glendale. We got a place to live, but after a month, she decided to go back. It wasn't for her, but I stayed, and yeah, that's why I went to California, because of that friend of mine.
Right. Did you come from a musical family? Was there anyone else in your family that played music or did what you do?
And not really, but I have an uncle, and he had a music record store. So it was really, I spent a lot of time at the record store listening to albums. It was great because I could listen to anything I wanted. I would go there and ask him if I could play certain albums, and I would just start playing the album, at the record store. That was awesome.
All right.
I had access to everything that was, released at the time.
How, just being like going to South America on tours, I noticed that the music from the US is huge over there. Like they just love the music. Was it on par with Brazilian music?
Not really. When I was growing up, all you would hear it was American and British music. It was English, all sang in English. There was, if I would guess, I would say 70% foreign, and 30% was Brazilian music, to be honest, FM at least, and AM a little more of the local Brazilian music, but it was mostly only American and British music. Now it's changed. Yeah.
So what? It's
yeah.
Well, I think pop music, rock music in general, it's a universal thing now. You go even like these Korean bands, these K-pop bands are huge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of everywhere. So I think growing up, I had cousins in Mexico who would come here and visit, and they just want to buy all the records here that they had heard in the underground tapes. They would come up here and just go home with armloads of records.
Yeah. In the 80s, when I was growing up, you didn't really have access to a lot of the albums. A lot of stuff you had to import. because it wasn't even being released here. I mean, there in Brazil.
So once landing in California, man, what kind of culture shock was that? Did you have to learn English here, or did you already speak English when you got here?
I thought I knew English until I moved here. A lot of slang, I didn't know any of the slang. The English that they teach in school, they don't teach you any slang. So coming to California, to America, it was hard. It took me a couple of years to get used to it and learn all the slang.
Did they teach the Queen's English in school?
Yeah. The proper English, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your first gig here?
I started working at jazz clubs with this friend of mine, Sandro. He played at the Baked Potato in LA, and I had a chance to meet a lot of great musicians, a lot of jazz musicians mostly, but some top-notch cats, and some crew people that also I became friends with. And from there, I started branching out into doing other things. They invited me to help them out with other gigs, some musicians, some other crew people. Yeah, so one thing led to another, and I tried not to burn any bridges. I tried to do my best to do a good job, and they kept calling me back.
What was your first road gig?
The very first time actually it was a cool thing to happen because I was on a tourist visa at the time, and it allowed me to stay in the country for 6 months. And I had to go somewhere, and I had this opportunity to go play at the Ronnie Scots, in London with Ayrton Moreira and Flora Purim, Brazilian artist. She's a singer. He's a percussionist. They played with Chick Corea. They've been in America for a long, long time. They're very respected jazz musicians. And I met them because Sandro, this friend of mine, was playing with them, and they needed someone to help with, set up and do sound. So they had this residency at the Ronnie Scott's. I think we stayed there for 3 weeks in London. So it was at the perfect time. My visa was about to expire. I left the country, and I came back, and I had another 6 months. But that was a kind of a gamble because they could have refused my reentry, right? But that was pre 9/11, so that wasn't really much of a deal back then.
Yeah.
And then I got another 6 months, but within those 6 months, I met my wife, and everything was just after that, everything was just smooth.
So did you play at Ronnie Scott's at the residence?
Actually, yeah, I say I play. It's funny. I say I play because when I'm with a band, I say, hey, we're going to play this place. I feel like I'm part of the band too, as the sound engineer. I don't know if other engineers say that, but I say we're going to play, even though I'm not playing, but I'm part of the band. I feel like it. But yeah, it was Ronnie Scott's. I was doing sound and helping with setup and sound in general. Yeah.
That's a legendary venue right there.
Oh yeah. Have you been there?
I've been there one time, but yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So many people play there. I heard like Jimi Hendrix, the whole
Jeff Beck, the 2 residencies there.
Oh, that DVD he released is amazing.
It is, right?
I cry every time I watch it.
So good. So good.
So good. In a small place, so there's no bad seat in there.
Yeah.
It's a small club. It's very intimate. So it was great to be able to go there.
So you said you were working with a lot of jazz musicians once you got here. Was that mainly your first few gigs in the US?
Yeah, that was mainly my first few gigs, but then after that, my next gig was Vonda Shepard. She's a singer-songwriter. She was making music for the show, Fox TV show called Ally McBeal. And she was at the top when she was writing music for the show. I think it lasted 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. She wrote over 500 songs for that show. And I got to meet her because I became friends with the person that was doing cartage for the sessions. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got to meet her. And she invited me to come on tour with her. And I started actually not as a sound engineer, but as a guitar tech. Wow. And then from there, I turned into monitor engineer / guitar tech, and then front of house, and then
monitor / guitar tech / TM.
Yeah.
Is that where it all started? The wearing of many hats on tour?
Yeah, exactly. She actually had a tour manager Daniel Abate um, at the time, and I was just doing sound and slash guitar tacking, setting things up. And he, after we finished the tour, I got a call from him. He said, "I need a sound engineer, but you also need to do tour management." I was like, I don't do that. And he's like, "I know you haven't done it, but I know you can do it because I've seen you work and I know how organized you are, and that's all it takes. So I'll help you out, whatever you need. Just come on." He was with Deep Purple at the time, production manager for Deep Purple, and the band that needed someone was Thin Lizzy. So I, like last minute, I just met everybody. We flew to Europe, and that's how I got started into doing tour management as well.
So TMing Thin Lizzy, your first TM gig.
Yeah, officially, yes. I'm sorry.
Which lineup of Thin Lizzy was that?
Obviously, no Phil Lynott, but it was John Sykes playing guitar and singing, and Scott Gorham, the original guitar player, Marco Mendoza on bass,
and Tommy Aldridge.
Tommy Aldridge. Oh,
yeah.
Talk about a dream team, right?
Yeah.
I grew up listening to those guys. So to have a chance to work with them and meet them and be on a bus with them, I couldn't believe it. I was in heaven. It was great playing those festivals in Sweden, in the UK, in Germany, in Italy. Big, huge festivals with Black Sabbath, Scorpions,
So were you with them when they recorded One Night Only, that lineup? It was
No.
a live album. They recorded One Night Only. I saw that lineup in Dallas.
Oh, really?
And by chance, they played a club that I used to work at, and by chance, their next few shows had gotten canceled, so they had a few days off, and they stayed in. I'm sorry to bogart your story, but you mentioned
No.
they stayed a few days in Dallas, and John Sykes, who I was their runner, called me and said, "Do you mind, me showing me, like driving me around Dallas for the next couple of days?" And it was amazing. Like I got to know this guy who I'd idolized for years, and it for a minute there I thought we were friends. Like he would text me, he called me on New Year's that year to wish me a happy New Year's.
Thanks.
But that lineup was just a monster lineup. Marco Mendoza on bass and the vocals, backup vocals, and it was so eerie how much Sykes sounded like Phil.
Exactly. And I wasn't aware he was such a great singer until then.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I got the nerve on the third day of us hanging out. I got the nerve to ask him about the Whitesnake album that he wrote with Coverdale. And
he calls him DC.
yeah, and because I'd heard that he hated talking about that because it was such a bad split. But he was so, he told me all the stories, man, and told me about coming to America, and it was really a lot of fun for me. So when you just mentioned that you tour managed that lineup, it's really cool.
It was really cool. And then right after that, I got a call to do Candlebox.
Who are you with right now?
Exactly. Yeah, for 16 years.
And what lineup with Candlebox is that? Was that still with Peter Klett on guitar? Or?
Yeah, it was everybody but the bass player. Barty Martin was not. Because Barty starting when they came back together in 2006, Barty was in the band, but then when I joined them, it was 2007, and Barty was no longer in the band. Then he was replaced by Adam Curry, who is still the bass player today, and that was Peter Klett, Scott Mercado on drums, Kevin, and then Memphis Hennessy was the second guitar player, a hired guitar player.
Being with a band like Candlebox that long, what's it like being with just one band? I know you probably do other gigs when they're not touring, but being their guy, especially, is that something you take pride in, that they keep having you back?
I have to, because it means a lot when someone shows you a resume and you see like 10, 12, 14, I don't know how many acts. They could all be great names, but if you work for those artists for just a few months or a year, I mean, it makes you wonder, right? Like, why are you not with them, right? What makes you jump? Or were you fired? Or you didn't like him? Or you didn't get along with the people? But when you see a resume with just a few names and like I worked with this band for 16 years, with this one for 10 years, with this one for 8 years, that says a lot, you know. So I take pride in that. I do, definitely.
Do you still do work with Vonda Shepard?
I do still, still. Yeah. So she's the one I've been working with the longest because I started working with her in, I want to say 2002. Yeah. So she goes to Europe, and we've just been in Europe a couple of times in the last 10 months. We've been in Europe a couple of times. So yeah, she's awesome. I'm fortunate to have met Vonda and the people of Candlebox because they're amazing people above anything. They're good people and very generous people, good human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were on your website and we noticed that you're also a videographer and you've made videos of Vonda and Candlebox and so forth. Is that something new to you, or have you always been doing that?
It's relatively new doing videos professionally, but that's something that I always liked. I was always involved with videos since I worked in a production company back in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, because we did video and audio production, post-production production. So I was always around video cameras and audio, and I had a fascination for the whole process of making a video. You know, I always liked movies and documentaries and what it takes to put it all together. So I always liked and played with it a little bit, but I never took it very, very seriously until the pandemic because I had a lot of time. So I started studying more and digging deep and buying some gear and started offering my services. And it's like, hey, I have the gear, and we're going on the road, and you know me, so there's I'm no stranger to them. I think it's a plus. They don't feel uncomfortable having me around with a camera. It's like,
Right.
oh, that's just Carlos with a camera. You can do whatever you want.
They
I'm
don't have to
walking
put on an act.
yeah, no, I'm walking in my underwear. You can film it. I don't care.
How
So,
often does that happen?
yeah, no, yeah, every day I see every at some point during the day somebody wearing an underwear. But I think it's a plus to be able to do that, to have someone that they're comfortable with a camera. It's
Yeah.
it's not someone that's new to them that's going to join a tour and be on the bus for a few weeks. Because it takes time for you to trust someone with a camera.
Yeah.
It's a personal space.
So you're a photographer as well.
Yeah.
Did that
Yeah.
happen around the same time during the
Yeah,
pandemic?
same time. I always like doing it. I've been doing it, but mostly with my phone. But I decided to take it seriously. And we have someone in common that we know, Chris Bradshaw. I think he was somewhat the trigger to it because he actually did a couple of videos for Candlebox too. And the way I saw it, the way he worked, he's a one-man operation. He brings a ton of cameras. He carries so much gear around his waist and shoulders. And he was shooting with different cameras and doing all these crazy moves with the boom and the cameras. And the videos turned out so good. I was like, wow, I would love to do that. So I stayed in touch with him. And when I told him I had bought a camera and I was doing videos, and he saw the video, I think he saw some potential, and he was very supportive and helpful. And then there was one time he needed someone to help him with the Shipwrecked cruise, to come and take photos and record videos. And he called me, and I'm so glad he did because I had a great time. And then we did it, I think, 2 or 3 times already.
Yeah. So I've talked to Paris Visoni and
Yeah. She
PJ
was there
Hoffman,
this year. Yeah, with us.
who've also done Shiprocked, and they both had the same thing to say, like the fans are insane on Shiprocked.
Yeah, it's long days. There's a band. You don't have to walk too far. There's always a band playing somewhere. It starts early in the day. I want to say 10, 11. If you want to start listening to music, to go to watch somebody, there's music until 2 in the morning. There's always a band playing somewhere. And that's so fun because as a photographer and videographer, you have a chance to record, to take photos of not just one band, but if you want, you can take photos of 10, 12 bands in one day. And the fans are great too. And you would think it would be too crazy, right? Everybody on a boat, drunk, heavy metal crowd. But no, everybody's so chill. It's like a family, a big family. Everybody is having just a great time. I never saw a fight.
Yeah.
I've been there as a photographer, videographer, and also as a TM sound guy, because Candlebox also did a couple of those cruises. Never had any issue whatsoever. It's just so cool. They do a great job with that cruise.
I know. I mentioned this on Paris's interview. Like I'm waiting on Bradshaw Chris to ask me to help him. Like I want to go
Yeah,
on shipwreck too.
yeah, yeah. They have a podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I've been
would
trying to
be.
get him on this show too.
He hasn't done yet.
He keeps telling me he's just not that interesting.
I think he's humble, which is a good quality, but he's got so many stories. He would
Yeah.
be, I'm going to have to call him, tell him to, to do it.
Yeah. Well, he's a great guy.
He is. He's got good stories, I'm sure. He just needs to do it. I think he might be shy about it, but he would be a great person to interview.
So with your photography, are you often like a band photographer too? Do you take pictures live, and how do you do that if you're also running sound and TMing?
Yeah, it's tricky, but I find time, it's tricky, but for example, during the show, I want to make sure the sound is good. That's my priority. So I'm there for the first few songs. Once I feel like I got a good mix going, I normally ask the systems engineer or the house engineer to mix a couple of shows for me, and I tell him how I like things done, and to give him some tips. I tell him, if you don't hear the solo, feel free. Don't be shy about it. Just feature the solo. If the drummer is doing some cool pattern with the toms, whatever it is, just feature that. That's how I like mixing. I'm always moving the faders up and down. So I go there for a couple of songs. I go to the pit. Sometimes I go to the stage. And it's also good for me as a sound guy because I'm walking the room. Normally the sound guy just stays behind the console. And it's not always necessarily the best spot. It could sound great at front of house, but it might not sound great on the side. So with me moving about to take the photos, I get to listen and hear how it sounds up front, in the middle, in the back, from the stage, what the band is listening from the stage. So it's great. It gives me the opportunity to listen to the mix, throughout the whole room. And after the show, I keep taking photos. I'm always carrying a camera. When I wake up, I put my camera on. I'm always taking photos of the people, the local crew setting things up, the PA going up, the lights going up, people working backstage, behind the scenes, kind of thing.
So you're always just documenting.
Yeah, always documenting, tour managing at the same time, production managing.
Backup singing.
Yeah. I've played in the past when Vonda asked me to play some percussion. I did that for a while, as I was mixing at the same time. I was playing percussion.
Right on.
Sorry.
This being Candlebox's farewell tour, is it their farewell tour, or are they farewelling for a while?
You know how it goes, right?
Never say never.
I haven't heard anything otherwise. I think it is. And if he ever decides to come back, I don't think it's going to be a major tour unless somehow they manage to get another hit on the radio where they can't refuse the amount of money they're going to offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it goes nowadays. But he wants to spend more time with the family, and I don't blame him. He has a 15 or 16-year-old son and a wife, and he loves them both. And he wants to spend more time with them. And but who knows? I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing some benefits here and there, some charity shows here and there. But I don't. There are no tours beyond the end of this year. There's nothing in the books. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to stay home for at least another year or two. I'm not sure if he's going to want to come back. He might get the itch. I don't know.
Yeah,
have to going to be worth leaving home.
Yeah. Well, this being their final tour, are you documenting a lot of stuff on video and photos? Do you think we'll see something like come out
photos for sure? Yeah, a lot of photos for sure. Video is a little trickier, but I'm trying to get as much video as I can. But also there is a documentary coming out, so I'm not crazy. I'm not gonna if I miss something, it's not the end of the world because there's a documentary coming out because we had a film crew. This director, Jack Pyatt, he was with us for a while documenting everything that was going on the road and interviewing the band. So it's going to be a cool documentary. I'm looking forward for it to be released. It should be released sometime this year, I believe.
And that's documenting just the final tour or the whole band's history?
It's how can I say, it's a band like Candlebox that had a couple of hits and they're still managing to stay busy, in spite of the industry the way it is and what it is like to be in a band like Candlebox,
Um,
yeah.
did you do any work with Kevin Martin and the High Watts?
Unfortunately, I did not. I wish I had, but that was I think that was 2006 and before that.
Mm-hmm.
Before the reunion was in between when they were apart, when they were separated between 2000 and 2006. It's a great album. I love that album. And I keep bugging him to play some of those songs live. He never did. But those songs are so good. I love that album.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's listening, check it out. The High Watts. It's fantastic. He sings his lungs off. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kevin's. I'm a big fan of the band. So I mean, I envy you getting to hear those songs, getting to hear that band every night. My current gig, like I wasn't a fan. I am now, but I wasn't a fan coming in. But now I listen and I'm like, oh shit, that's Duran Duran on stage,
Yeah.
But I envy you getting to hear songs that were part of my coming of age,
Yeah, but you learn to like it, right? When you see the band playing night after night, you learn to like it. I didn't know who Candlebox was when I was hired,
So
because they were not big in Brazil. They played, their 2 or 3 songs on the radio in Brazil, but they never toured South America much. So I wasn't aware of who they were. I didn't know what to expect, but we clicked right away. It was great, and I learned to enjoy the whole repertoire. Even the songs that Kevin doesn't like, I like, and I don't understand why he doesn't like certain songs. There is a song that I bug him all the time. 10,000 Horses is one of my favorite songs.
It is.
He doesn't like it for some reason. He rarely plays it, and I keep buttering him. And the same thing with the High Watch song. I never played. There's certain songs he just doesn't play, doesn't like it. But it's a great band.
Maybe he'll surprise you on that last show.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Once all this is done, man, what do you got going on next? Do you have something lined up, or?
I'm sure something's gonna happen. You know how it is in the industry. I used to be stressed out when a tour would end. I wouldn't know. I didn't have anything lined up, and especially when at the end of the year, right? Winter comes and there's nothing going on. Not a lot of concerts going. December, January, March starts picking up again. So I stopped worrying about it because one way or another, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people. I just feel like I want to kind of stop wearing many hats like I've been doing because it's kind of burning me out a little bit. I'm feeling that it's not as fun as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause there's always a compromise. I feel like I'm that guy at the circus who's spinning the plates on a stick.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is one of those plates are going to fall. It's inevitable because there are too many plates and sticks at the same time. And I just hope when a plate falls, it's not an expensive china because it's going to break.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to catch it because I'm stretched so thin. It's good for the band because they save a lot of money, because I'm doing the work of 4, 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And it saves hotels, rooms, flights, and bunk space, buzz space.
Yeah.
But there's always a compromise. And we work long hours, I wake up at 10 in the morning. And by the time I go to bed, it's 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my first gigs, I still have a friend. He's become a very dear friend, but he was the TM front of house production manager. And he told me it was it is the most thankless job you could possibly do, just wearing so many hats. Because at the end of the night, when you get on that bus and everyone's partying or drinking, you're trying to get rest because you have to be up first thing in the morning, and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
No. I I get sometimes Kevin and I get pissed at him because at the end of the night I go to the buzz and he's playing loud music. He's having a good time. It's like a discotheque in there, and they're playing this loud music and they have a good time. And I was like, please, I just want a break. My ears are just like I've been mixing all night.
Yeah.
And I get to the buzz and I want silence and I go and I turn to just to piss him off. I turn it down. And I go to the back lounge. I turn it down, go to the back lounge. He starts cursing at me.
But it's good fun, right? Like,
Yeah. He's a ball buster, that guy. But he's very generous. He's a good human being. I love the guy.
that's good, man. That's good to know.
Yeah.
You've got the front of house, you got your audio gig, you got the video, you got the photography. If you could do one, which one would you do? If you could do one and say, this is how I'm going to make my living in.
I would like to one day be able to get a cushy gig just doing sound.
Mhm.
Let's say just do sound for Duran Duran. I will be happy.
Man,
Actually,
we'd love to have you out there.
yeah. Or Tears for Fears. That's one of my bucket list bands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tears for Fears, man. I would like, or
Big
Paul
fan
McCartney.
here.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, Tears for Fears, Duran Duran. I've been at that level. If I could just do that, I'm sure I would kill it, and I would be much more relaxed, and I would enjoy so much more because that's all I wanted to do, and I would be focused just on that. So I would spend all day just making sure everything was going to be perfect. Because
So
a lot of times I don't have the time. By the time it's time for sound check, I have 30 minutes to tune the system, and EQ the stage, the wedges on stage, make sure they're not going to feedback. They're sounding as loud as possible without feeding back. I got maybe an hour to do that. And then the band plays their sound check. And then the support band needs to do their setup, sound check, and then doors open. Showtime comes, I mix the band, and that's it. So I'm a front of house guy for 2 hours, 3 hours, three hours.
Uh-huh.
If I could get in the venue early in the morning, if I was just doing sound and focus on working with the systems engineer, making sure everything is going to sound perfect, that would be a dream.
So you're running wedges, not in-ears.
Yeah, old school backline amps, cabinets, two Marshalls on stage left, two Mesas on stage right, Ampeg rig, drum kit. It's the drummer is on in-ears though, but we got a sub for him.
Okay.
But yeah, it's loud. It's a loud stage.
So what you just said, to make sure that the wedges are set, are you doing monitors from front of house too?
Yeah. Yes,
So you're the monitor engineer too.
Yeah.
You didn't tell us that.
That's why I say I'm the sound engineer. I don't say I'm the front of house because I'm also doing monitors and I record the show too. So I'm also the recording engineer. We just released an acoustic album, that we recorded live as well.
Oh.
It's funny because I was never afraid of working hard. I don't take it for granted the fact that I came from Brazil to America and to pursue my dream in the music business. And here I am living it. So if somebody asks us if I can do something, I'm always going to say yes. I'm not afraid of working hard, but at the same time, you got to be careful because there's just so much you can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And sometimes you get in that with that wrong organization that take advantage of it.
Yeah. Some people take kindness for weakness, right?
Yeah. Going back to your Brazilian roots, do you go back there quite often with your gigs?
Not as much as I would like to. I always wanted to go back there with a band, especially Candlebox or Vonda, but I never did. But I had the privilege to go to Brazil one time as a tour manager for Devo.
Oh,
yeah, we did one show in Sao Paulo, so that was awesome to be able to go back to my hometown and be with a band like Devo. My friends there, they were all proud of me, and it was a great show. And yeah, I met all those guys.
Right on.
It was awesome.
Well, cool, man. So you've got nothing in line next. You're doing the final tour for Candlebox.
Well, maybe I'll do some photography. Also pursue that because that's something that's it's almost as equally enjoyable as sound. I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I would say it's like, 40-60. But I'm having such a great time taking photos and videos because you can also be creative, especially nowadays with social media. All the artists need content, right? Right, for their social media. So that's something that I'm going to start offering more, and maybe that would be something that I would really get into because it's just me, it's not like I have to work with many people. It's not like I have to take care of the whole band and the crew, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm here as the photographer. I'm by myself, and I don't have to take care of anybody. I'm just here to take photos and videos. That's it. Uh, so that could be something that I
Would
could.
you ever take a gig like what Paris does, just be a tour photographer?
Yeah, I would. I would. I feel confident enough now after doing this for a while that I could, do a great job. I would love to do that. Paris is amazing. She's great. It was awesome to have the opportunity to have met her at the Shiprock. It was great. And everybody, all the photographers that were there, we were all exchanging information, helping each other out. If there was something I didn't know, I could ask anyone. We were always helping each other. So that was really cool.
And your personal photography, it doesn't just center around music. You do other types of photography as well, right?
Yeah, the portraits but I like more candid shots. I don't really like to the pose thing, although I've done it. But I like candid shots. I like getting people without. I like just sneaking, you know, without them realizing I'm there. Very candid shots, street photography. I love street photography as well.
Do you do any type of landscapes or portraits or?
I haven't done many landscapes, but like I said, candid shots. That's why I like live concerts, because they're not looking at me at the lens. I'm going after them. I'm looking at the weird shots, waiting for that big moment where the lead singer is holding the mic up high, and he's sweating and he's got a nice T-shirt, with a nice thing going on, and the light in the background. And when you edit that and enlarge it, and it just looks so good. It's just like, wow, I took that photo. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Like the old photos that you probably Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, the Beatles, all those photos that we see. And it was like, wow, what was it like that day, that
Yeah.
moment in time, right?
Much better than the underwear shot.
There are plenty of those too, right? Iggy Pop.
Maybe that could be your thing, your coffee table book, just a selection of underwear photos. Different rockers.
Or Calvin Klein.
Your last name, is it Novais?
Yes, perfect.
Novais? Is that a very common Brazilian name?
Yeah, in Brazil it is. Yeah, it's Portuguese. Novais. You could write it with I or an E, Novai or ES. Yeah. And yeah.
I worked for a band who at their height they had 3 Taylors in the band. Everyone thought they were related, but it's just a very common name.
Yeah, John, Roger, and Andy, right?
Yeah, not brothers. When we were trying to find you on social media, we found several Carlos Novais, and they were all Brazilian guys, and they all had their shirt unbuttoned.
Not me.
We were hoping you'd show up just with shirt unbuttoned and medallions glistening.
No, not me.
Well, where can people find you online, Carlos?
I have a website, carlosnovais.com, Novais, carlosnovais.com. And I have a bunch of photos in there. And if you want to check my Instagram, there's a link in there as well on the main page on the top right. There's a Instagram logo in there. Just click in there. It takes you to my Instagram page, and you can see all the artists I've worked with. Most, because I didn't always take photos. That's something I started doing more recently. But there's a ton of photos there, too.
Right on. And man, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to us.
It's a privilege and a pleasure. I love your podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Well, it's called Is Breakfast Included? So what's coming next. If we were having breakfast, what would you have?
The most important thing for me is the coffee, because I'm from Brazil, right? Coffee, obviously. I used to have a coffee tree growing up in my front yard. I had a coffee tree, and I used to chew the beans My
Uh-huh.
mom had no idea what effects the coffee had on kids, so I would run on my bike all the way down here on my front yard and hit the wall right down there. It's like come back laughing, all hurt and scratched up, and do the same thing again. And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" So the coffee that was chewing. So coffee is the most important thing. I don't put anything in my coffee. No sugar, no cream, nothing. Just black. Not too strong. Medium roast because I don't like it too dark. And I love the breakfast in South America and Europe. It's the best. It's the best. And they when we're traveling, I love the title of your podcast here because that's one of the questions I hear the most when we are touring. When we get to the hotel, like, is breakfast included? And the breakfast in Europe and South America is just like huge. You got a little bit of everything. It's like better than a brunch. So, but coffee is the most important thing.
Right on, man. Well, Carlos, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you're busy. I know you're in the middle of a tour, but it's been good talking to you, man.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
All right. Carlos Novais. I told you, right? Feels like you've known him all your life. Great guy, super nice guy. And just when you talk to him, you see how proud he is of his work. He takes pride in everything, wears many hats, like a lot on tour. Like he does it all. You can find out more about him, his photography, his videography at his website, carlosnovais.com. That's Novais is Novais.com. You can link to his Instagram. If Candlebox is coming your way, go out, check it out, run out to front of the house, say hello to him. Anyway, guys, check out our web store, isbreakfast.bigcartel.com. Pick yourselves up a shirt. I am done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.